What would you do if the cost of doing what's right was your own freedom? In the heart of a city frayed by tension, where the line between justice and power blurred, one man stood firm against the storm. His name was Daniel Carter, a war veteran whose scars told stories of battles fought and lives saved, but none as fierce as the one he faced on a cold November evening. Daniel walked the streets of Harborview, his boots heavy against the cracked pavement. The city had changed since he returned from his last deployment 5 years ago. Once vibrant, it now simmered with distrust between neighbors, between citizens, and the police. He carried his past in the weight of his steps, 2 tours in Afghanistan, a Purple Heart, and memories of comrades who never made it home. His military jacket, frayed but proud, bore the medals he rarely spoke of. To him, they were reminders of duty, not glory. That night, the air was thick with unrest. Protests had erupted after a string of incidents involving the Harborview Police Department. Daniel wasn't one for crowds, but he found himself near the edge of a demonstration, drawn by the chants and the flicker of signs demanding justice. He stood in the shadows, watching as a young man, no older than 20, was shoved against a brick wall by 2 officers. The boy's cries echoed, his hands raised, defenseless. The officers' voices were sharp, their movements rough. Daniel's gut twisted. He'd seen power abused before on battlefields, in war zones, but this was home. He stepped forward, his voice steady but firm. "Let him go. He's not resisting." The officers turned, their eyes narrowing. One, a burly man with a badge reading, Sergeant Malone, sneered. "Mind your business, old man." Daniel didn't flinch. "This is my business. You're hurting him." The crowd grew quiet, sensing the tension. Malone stepped closer, his hand on his baton. "Back off, or you're next." Daniel's heart pounded, but his training kicked in calm under pressure. He raised his hands, showing he meant no threat, but he didn't step back. "You don't need to do this. Let the kid go." The second officer grabbed Daniel's arm, twisting it behind his back. The crowd gasped, some shouting, others filming. Malone barked, "You're under arrest for obstruction." Handcuffs clicked, cold and tight, around Daniel's wrists. The young man was released, disappearing into the crowd, but Daniel was shoved into a patrol car, his medals glinting under the streetlights. At the precinct, Daniel sat in a holding cell, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. He didn't regret his actions, but doubt crept in. Had he made things worse? The boy was free, but at what cost? Hours passed before he was brought before a judge for his arraignment. The courtroom was small, the air stale. Judge Eleanor Hayes, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a reputation for fairness, presided. She read the charges: obstruction of justice, interfering with an officer. Daniel stood tall, his voice clear as he pleaded not guilty. The prosecutor painted Daniel as a troublemaker, a man who disrupted law and order. Malone testified, his words dripping with contempt, claiming Daniel had incited the crowd. The judge listened, her expression unreadable. Then, Daniel's public defender, a young woman named Lila, called him to speak. He recounted the night, the boy's fear, the officer's aggression, his instinct to protect. His voice was steady, but emotion cracked through when he said, "I fought for this country to protect people, not to watch them get hurt." The courtroom fell silent. Judge Hayes leaned forward, her gaze fixed on Daniel. "You're a veteran?" she asked. He nodded. "2 tours, ma'am." "Army." She asked for his full name and service record. As Daniel spoke, a flicker of recognition crossed her face. She excused herself briefly, retreating to her chambers. Whispers filled the room. What was happening? When Judge Hayes returned, her eyes were red, her voice unsteady. "Mr. Carter," she began, "do you remember a mission in Kandahar, 2012? A convoy ambush?" Daniel's brow furrowed. He nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am. I lost good men that day." The judge's hands trembled as she continued. "You pulled a young soldier from a burning vehicle. You carried him to safety under fire. That soldier was my son, Michael." The room gasped. Daniel froze, memories flooding back, flames, gunfire, the weight of a wounded man in his arms. He hadn't known the soldier's name, only that he'd done what needed doing. Judge Hayes wiped a tear. "Michael survived because of you. He's a father now, because of you." She paused, composing herself. "And now you stand here, arrested for doing what's right." The twist hit like a wave. Lila, the public defender, stepped forward, revealing she'd been digging into the case. She presented a video from the protest, uploaded to social media, showing Malone's aggression and Daniel's restraint. The crowd's footage corroborated Daniel's story. The boy hadn't resisted, and Daniel had only spoken up. Lila argued that the charges were baseless, a retaliation for challenging authority. Judge Hayes turned to Malone, her voice like steel. "Sergeant, your actions disgrace your badge. This court will not tolerate abuse under the guise of law." She dismissed the charges against Daniel, ordering an investigation into Malone's conduct. The courtroom erupted in applause, but Daniel remained still, his eyes on the judge. She stepped down from the bench, an unusual move, and approached him. "Thank you, Mr. Carter," she said softly. "For my son. For that boy. For reminding us what courage looks like." Daniel nodded, his throat tight. "Just doing my duty, ma'am." As he left the courtroom, the crowd outside cheered, but he didn't linger. He walked back into the city, his medals heavy, his heart lighter. The young man from the protest found him later, his name revealed as Jamal. He thanked Daniel, his eyes wide with gratitude. "You didn't have to do that," Jamal said. Daniel smiled faintly. "Yes, I did." The story of Daniel Carter spread through Harborview. Some called him a hero, others a troublemaker. But to those who knew the truth, he was a man who'd never stopped fighting for what was right, no matter the cost. The city began to change slowly, imperfectly. Protests grew quieter, reforms took root, and trust, though fragile, began to mend. In the quiet of his small apartment, Daniel sat by the window, watching the city lights. He thought of his comrades, of Jamal, of Judge Hayes' son. He thought of the battles he'd fought and the ones still to come. Duty wasn't just a word to him, it was a promise. And as long as he could stand, he'd keep it. The story of Daniel Carter wasn't just about one night or one man. It was about the ripple of courage, the power of standing up, and the hope that even in a broken world, one person's actions could light the way. What would you do if the cost of doing what's right was your own freedom? Daniel Carter answered that question, and in doing so, he reminded us all what it means to be human.